Hey guys, Tyrascar Dawn Chaser here, Frost Mage of the Century, and welcome to the first half of Know Your Enemy Frost Mage Edition. In this guide, I'll be talking about Frost Mage's strengths and weaknesses, how to play using one, with one, and against one, different builds and playstyles, and finally, specific matchups and counters. Overall, Frost Mage is a medium mobility, highly controlling class with high burst and CC potential. As I stated earlier, Frost Mage has high burst and CC potential. Running a Glacial Spike build, one could easily bring the enemy down from 100 to 0 within a few seconds, little setup required. The same goes for the more barrage-oriented, but still incredibly effective Comet Storm Ice Nova build. Frost Mages also have access to Polymorph, Frost Nova, and Ring of Frost, which can be used to single-handedly lock down and manipulate entire groups of people if done correctly. The large amount of instant cast abilities keeps a Frost Mage spell locked to a minimum, constantly applying pressure even with a melee or two on them. Somewhat passable cleave and spread damage in the form of Splitting Ice, Frozen Orb, and Instant Blizzard. These spells can be used to slow down and stall out other players in certain node-based rated battlegrounds. Moving on to weaknesses, to which there are also a lot of. Frost Mage has relatively low mobility in comparison to Fire and Arcane Mages. Frost relies on inconsistent, proc-based damage in order to burst. If you're looking for more consistent damage, the Glacial Spike build is really your only option, unfortunately. Frost also has little sustained damage outside of its burst abilities, Frostbolt's only purpose being to build up procs and generate pressure, not to deal damage. Frost also has comparatively less survivability than Fire. It has literally zero healing, and Frost Barrier is basically paper. The only thing Frost has going for it is Temporal Shield and Ice Block, but neither of those spells recover damage, only prevent it. You have a finite life pool, meaning that you need to leverage it as much as possible. Learning how to kite and using Frost Nova and Cone of Cold specifically can mean the difference between life and death against a melee opponent. As a Frost Mage, you probably have 3 different talent builds you could go with. There's the Glacial Spike build, my personal favorite, blowing people up with a single spell, but it does require a little bit of setup when compared to the other 2 viable builds. You could go with the Barrage, more arena-oriented build, focusing on a flurry of attacks and slows. Or you could choose the more unique Deep Shatter build, focusing on rooting the enemy in place to set up empowered icicles for a Glacial Spike. Glacial Spike build. You'll be taking Lonely Winter, Shimmer, or Ice Flows depending on which one you prefer, Incanter's Flow, Ice Nova. Tier 5 is situational, and I'll be going over these talents in the next video. Arctic Gale, and finally, Glacial Spike, of course. For the Honor talents, you'll be taking Gladiator's Medallion or Relentless, depending on which one you prefer. Mind Quickness. Tiers 3 and 4 are both situational, and I will be going over them in the next video. Frostbite, and finally, Concentrated Coolness. Comet Storm build. First, you'll be taking Lonely Winter, of course, Shimmer, Incanter's Flow, or Mirror Images. It depends on which one you prefer. Mirror Images is more burst oriented, whereas Incanter's Flow provides more consistent damage, so it's really just whichever one you prefer. Then you'll be choosing Ice Nova. Like I said before, this next tier is situational, and I will be going over it in the next video. Then there's Arctic Gale, and finally Comet Storm. For the Honor talents, you'll be taking Gladiator's Medallion for Tier 1. Tier 2 will be Mind Quickness. Tiers 3 and 4 are situational like before and will be covered in the next video. The next tier you'll be taking Frostbite, and finally the last tier, like the Glacial Spike build, you'll be taking Concentrated Coolness. Finally, for the Deep Shatter build, Tier 1 you'll be going Bone Chilling, which is actually different from the other two builds. Tier 2 you'll be going for Shimmer or Ice Flows. Tier 3 will be Incancerous Flow. Tier 4 will be Ice Nova. Tier 5, like all the other ones, is situational and will be covered in the next video. Tier 6 is Arctic Gale, and Tier 7 is of course Glacial Spike. So now for the Honor talents. Tiers 1 and 2 will be Gladiator's Medallion and Mind Quickness respectively. Tiers 3 and 4 are situational and will be covered in part 2 of this video like I said before. Next you're going to be taking Deep Shatter. This build doesn't work with the Deep Shatter talent obviously. And finally you'll be taking Ice Form for your last talent option. Inspired by the Hearthstone equivalent by Zelay, Know Your Enemy is a series dedicated to equipping players with the skill and the know-how to not only play and master specialization, but also counter it. Hope you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you all later.